Hi guys, my name's Rowan Hill. Today I'm going to be speaking to you around a seed investment into Archon Energy, which is a company that I've invested in, also taken an active role in helping raise capital and help with their scaling. The ask for the round is 35 million USD. But before I jump into the presentation, let me give you a little bit of background around myself and run through my relationship with the business and why I've invested in it and why I'm speaking about it today. This goes back to 2012. I was an electrician by trade. Grew up in a little farming town, moved up to Mackay and essentially got into the mining industry. And I got exposed to Bitcoin in 2012. So it spiked for me there. I was like, this is interesting. However, I had no idea what it could do. It wasn't until 2014 where I actually lost everything. I'm one of the horror stories where I had a couple hundred Bitcoin worth today in excess of tens of millions of dollars that I lost. Just not knowing what to do and how to put the right systems and processes in place to ensure that if I got hit by a bus or anything like that happened, that my family would be taken care of. So after having lost a substantial amount of money in 2014, I went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole in a big way to better understand how the technology works, what's involved in the industry, and just to get a better understanding of what's going on as we transition out of this industrial age into the information age of technology. I'm sure we've all heard it. Who's heard data is the new oil? Everyone's heard that. So where this relationship with Josh and who's the founder of Josh Payne, who's the founder of Archon really starts is back in 2017, we were about to set up a retail hedge fund for crypto where I flew a heap of guys in the space, not knowing who to reach out to, up to the Whitsundays, and hosted an event where essentially I found a group of guys with a fund that were about to manage a whole heap of money for crypto. And what had happened was met all these absolutely amazing individuals. And in the room, one of my mentors who has a solar farm basically said, this is cool. We should explore this further. Let's build a Bitcoin mine on my solar farm. And we asked around a few of the guys in the group, and Josh got recommended to us as one of the leading guys in Australia to speak to around setting up little hobbyist farms and whatnot. At the time, he owned a company in 2017 called Oz Mining Rigs Australia. Fast forward a little bit throughout that period there, basically Josh and I over the following years went into a business together called Envest Group out of Malaysia, where we focused on startups and invested in early stage companies that aligned with how we wanted to make a greater human experience. And Josh has been in the startup space, and at the ripe age of 21, he founded a construction, what's the word I'm looking for, contractor company, because he was frustrated with the way that the business was operating. And he did this and exited that in a period of 18 months with growing it to a scale of over, I think he had 55 staff at that point in time. From 2017 through to 2020, he went on to essentially create, stepping into the SPAC market, and founded a company which ended up listing on the NASDAQ late last year called Battery Future Acquisition Corp. As it stands today, he's currently the youngest founder and CFO of a SPAC in the world. Ended up getting over $1 billion worth of interest and subscribed to over 345 million USD. That SPAC focuses on all the raw materials that basically build out batteries, so lithium, cobalt, and things like this. So he's gone through quite the journey in terms of taking a company from ideation right through to listing in a public market. Josh, now just having done this, late 2021 came to me and said, Rowan, I'm about to do some really cool stuff within the mining industry. And having him and I basically been in business since back then, I was like, this is super interesting to me, because Bitcoin in my eyes is the digital representation of the Akashic records. What it solves is an incredible thing, which was the Byzantine generals problem, which has existed for thousands of years. When it comes to books and records, there's all these silos of information around the world. Bitcoin's nature and the mechanism behind it, which is proof of work, which is what the miners do, basically alleviates that problem. It eliminates jurisdictional risk, central bodies or governments having a mechanism that incentivizes all the participants in the network to do the right thing. And that for me is amazing, because we've never had a true and accurate history of what's gone on without having some form of manipulation or corruption or something like that's taken place. So mining, in my eyes, is an incredible infrastructure. Before I dive into the presentation, though, just to give a little bit of context, who actually knows what Bitcoin mining is? Does anyone know? Who doesn't know how it works? To give it in a short summary, how Bitcoin mining works there's 21 million coins on the network, and essentially what these miners do, they use a SHA-256 algorithm. They're a data center, so they use energy, power, to go into the data center. These computers sit there and tick, 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 and solve a mathematical problem. When they get the right problem right, all the transactions which peer-to-peer people transacted go into a block, and they win essentially the block reward and the fees associated with that block. So it's a very simple process to understand, where there's no consumers, nothing like this. It's just you basically utilize energy and solve a problem, and you make money and turn that into, whether you want to keep it in Bitcoin, US dollars, Euro, Australian, it's really up to you. But to dive into the presentation now into Archon, late 2021, we set out to raise $1 million AUD in the pre-seed round. Both myself and an individual in the room participated in the round. I went on to raise, and we oversubscribed $2.6 million in total, which we blew out of the water the original ask. We've moved very, very quickly, basically setting up sites here in Australia. As a pre-seed company, normally you've got an element of risk where they haven't actually validated the model. Josh, prior to coming to us with this, had a contract with LMS. LMS is Australia's largest gasification to energy company. They're about a $500 million company with about 75 megawatts in their portfolio. Essentially what they do is they've got methane, and they burn this methane off, and they store it in batteries and sell it to the grid on peak for around 4 cents a kilowatt. That's fairly capital intensive. And essentially what these guys do is, at the moment when we went in to do the portfolio optimization strategy, they're about to deploy $15 million into batteries to be able to store the energy. And what our portfolio optimization strategy come out with was we could 3 to 5x the revenue that a $500 million company was producing. Instead of storing that power in batteries and then hoping to sell it onto the grid in peak hours, essentially converting that energy into Bitcoin. That was extremely beneficial for the business, and they essentially signed an exclusive agreement with us and proceeded. We ended up completing the pilot on that late last year. Some of the investment highlights. Bitcoin mining is a highly scalable, profitable business. In terms of the scalability, it really comes down to how much energy you have access to. For us here with the contract with LMS, we've currently got 14 megawatt across their sites, which we've currently got contracted. And we've additionally got another 5 sites here in Australia, which we're projected to start within the next 3 months. We're in the process for this 35 million. We're hoping to close out by the end of this month. We've already got a term sheet for 25 million USD. The environmental side here with this Bitcoin mining Archon, obviously you've got coal powered as an energy source, you've got methane, you've got hydroelectric, solar, all these different forms. With all of the ESG goals and us all moving in a direction where we're looking for more sustainable energy sources and just moving in a more conscious way, Archon chose to be 100% renewable. It's currently among 2 companies in the world that are 100% renewable. One of the others being Iris Energy, which is also an Australian company. The growth in this industry at the moment, Bitcoin mining over the last number of years has grown quite significantly. It's been growing the data centers essentially year on year, where the network's difficulty rate and miners have expanded from the Arctic Circle over in Iceland to Australia to Texas to all around the world. And why this is really key and why I want to be a part of this is when you look at these miners and the distribution of these networks, when it comes to having a massive data center in each jurisdiction around the world, it gives an element of power to that country when it comes to voting power. So this is why it's crucial for Australian companies to also participate in the mining sector. At the moment, these are the 5 sites that I mentioned we've got here at the moment. Harlem Road, Woolart, Crowlands, and Wynnum. These are all the Australian sites. The acquisition which we're going through right now, which we've signed an agreement for, is over in Norway, where we've got a hydroelectric site that's been operating now for 3 years. We've binded an agreement there to acquire that company for essentially 32 million USD. That business at the moment is generating around 15 million in revenue, about 8.5 million EBITDA per annum. This particular site here, the hydroelectric, given the market correction at the moment, we're in an extremely good position due to we're actually making money on the power, not on the price of Bitcoin for that particular site. No matter how far the price corrects down, we're insulated from market conditions. So at the moment,
1.5 minutes to go.
We've already got in place 22 million in debt from a London-based firm, and also 35 million in debt signed off from a US company as well. So at the moment, my role here and why I'm pitching Archon today is to have additional conversations with investors that are interested in the crypto space and mining. But to kind of give it in a layman's term, essentially mining in my eyes is land banking. It's like owning a property, owning the infrastructure and the underlying asset that builds the network. Being a part of a Bitcoin mine essentially is like when you look at PayPal, Stripe, MasterCard, Visa, these financial institutions that are handling transactional throughput of the finances and the data. Miners are essentially making the money and verifying the network. So they are the underlying infrastructure which supports this transition into the information age. So it's an extremely lucrative industry. There's quite a lot of information in here, and I'm like a little bit overwhelmed trying to get through it all. I realized it's a lot, but I've got a full IAM perspective ready to go. It was complete by PwC. There's a number of top tier firms. Some of the lead investors in the round are Palantir or Kestrel 01X, where they're all the legal counsel from Palantir. These guys work on a number of government contracts around the world, ranging from Ukraine, Russia, US, and a number of areas. We've also got Linked Group Energy, which is one of Australia's larger electrical contractors. Thank you. Yes. That's the site in Norway.
Okay, judges, you have 2 minutes each to give feedback to what can be improved in the presentation.
A lot.
First things first, the slides confuse me with regards to what you're saying because there's no correlation. So the visual in this instance does not support what you're saying specifically. So what you're saying has validity, and the slide should be much more concise and constructed. That's number one. Number two, it's what like you're asking for conversations, yeah?
Interested parties, yeah.
Interested parties, yeah. And I think what would be more helpful would be like for the $35 million, what would this specifically be used for? And what would that, let's say in the next financial year, in the next 10 years, what would that specifically look like in terms of where the money is being utilized? Yeah, I think there's this specific.
Awesome, thank you. Firstly, I think I loved how you incorporated the story aspect in the beginning because that's what was missing on the first day. So that really felt really good. Given the background of, why you came to make these investments, why you're pitching what you're pitching today, etc. So I really loved that you imported that or added that, the story and the emotional aspect to it. I think the data is really solid. I enjoyed how you asked us if we knew what Bitcoin mining was, because obviously if you progress through the pitch and we don't know, that would lose some of us. So I enjoyed that as well. I think having knowing you from already and the skills that you've got and the things that you do, if I didn't know, I would have been a little bit confused, like Ray said, as to what you're actually asking for. So you said interested parties. I love it. But what does that mean to me? Does that mean come and have a chat and be even more specific around that? So overall, I thought the presentation had improved a lot from your last one. I think the pitch deck was awesome. It's still like a lot of information. On a slide, I would say less information. On a pitch deck, when I've got time to read it, it's perfect. So obviously you did, that. And so short, sharp, loved it. More clarity at the end and even ending, knowing what you know with the way Bitcoin has the opportunity to really, like more or less, remove corruption because everything is transparent. Speaking to that as a legacy piece, as a what you're trying to really do here, I would love to feel, because that would have been another buy-in for me as well, because I know what you stand for. And if you threw that in there, for me, it would have been, I love it. So I can invest or be an interested party. I can have a return on this, and I can also be a part in a huge thing that has the potential to change the world. So I loved it, and I would love to see those things as well. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, observers, you could give each judge feedback on how good they were in helping Rowan.
So, yeah, Ray, I think it was great. You spoke about no correlation between the slides with what he was saying, and it caused confusion as you were looking back and forwards. It was mentioned that they were quite busy, which caused you to could probably go off track from what he was saying as you were bouncing back and forwards. I thought that was valuable. I think better feedback may have been at what points you were lost confusion. So he could have gone, okay, I can work on that point now, I can work on that point now, and to bring it back to that. So great feedback on that. And mentioning the data was solid and everything really would help him if now knowing that he wants to talk about what Espen spoke about next, which is what I'll move into. Yeah, you spoke about confusion, too much information, and you wanted more clarity, and you talk more about that legacy piece to finish off the story. I thought that was really valuable. I actually don't have too much more to add. I thought you had a solid piece of feedback for Rowan, and probably just a similar thing as like points of a speech or where you felt you went off track or anything like that, or maybe taking some notes so you can go, hey, this was the time that somebody as me who is a valuable investor, and this is for both of you, would go, oh, I'm not sure right now. So that's my feedback.